Hello, a lot of you have been asking how to balance a busy working and family life with a productive vegetable garden. Well, it's what I try to do here, so I thought I'd take you on a tour. You'll see behind the scenes and some stuff you don't often see on our videos. And watch out for Rosie here, who we're going to rig up with a camera, and Rosie is going to be our dog camera assistant number one. So let's have a look, let's get started. So just to give you a bit of a lay of the land here, I'm growing in this section in raised beds because it's easier, it's just kind of fun to do one bed at a time and move on to the next. So what am I growing? I'll take you along here. This here is, we've got sort of mainly salads in the front here. I'm growing beets or beetroot, and I've multi-sown those by popping 2 to say 3 seeds in each module or plug tray, each plug, and then growing them on and planting them out as one block without thinning them. So you get clusters of plants, and the advantage of that is there's no thinning out. You can get exactly the right spacing straight away, and then you just pull away and twist off the biggest roots as they're ready and leave the smallest ones to grow on. It works really well. It's maybe like a natural way of extending the harvest season. These are my romaine lettuce. I'm really proud of these. They're looking absolutely strong and firm. It's relatively early in the morning, so they're still really sort of turgid and fresh. So I harvest them not by pulling off the whole head, but by clicking off the leaves from the sides, the oldest ones, and leaving the central leaves to grow on. And over time, they'll sort of develop a little stalk as you click off the leaves, and these should crop for, well, maybe up to sort of 2 or 3 months. And there's nothing better than a fresh salad. So these guys are cropping well and sating my appetite. In the bed behind me, I've got some red loose leaf lettuce, Lollo Rosso, and I do exactly the same here. Just click them off, and look, I've got a nice salad all ready for lunch. These are green or salad or spring onions, again multi-sown in clusters, so there's no thinning out, and they'll the roots will grow and sort of push each other apart, the stems, and so you'll get little clusters, almost like ready to go bunches of onions, and poof, off you go and into the salad. Now, at the front here, little funny story, these are carrots that popped up in a pot that I'd sown some tomato seeds in. I was doing a demonstration for another video on how to sow carrots, and I'd sown them in, I think, right at the start of the year anyway, when it was very cold. Didn't germinate for 2 months, assumed, well, you know, it's dud seed. And then they started popping up in the tomatoes because I'd reused the potting mix to grow the tomatoes. So you're not meant to carefully prick out and transplant carrots or any other roots, are you? But I thought, you know what, I'll give it a try. Okay, it's a little weedy, it's a little funny. Look, it's like a little man sort of dancing around, but that'll be quite nice. That's not bad, is it? There's actually quite a lot going on here, but I keep track of it all on our garden planner, and if you've not heard about it, I'll pop a link to it in the video description down below. I've got celeriac here, and I've got this row of main crop carrots here, and I've direct sown these, and I'll thin them out at some point. I'm going to put a fleece, a row cover over them to protect them from carrot root fly, because they're not around at the moment, but I suspect they're waiting in the wings. Now, some of you, your onions are probably way ahead compared to these, but I found with onions grown from seeds rather than sets, which are like those little mini onions, that they kind of don't bolt so quickly, and they sit around kind of seemingly doing nothing, and then bam, they kind of almost double in the space of about 2 weeks. It's been nice and warm here, haven't had much rain, but I've given them good water, and they're really beginning to respond to that. So I reckon in the next 3 to 4 weeks, they'll start sort of bulbing out and fleshing out. A few more clusters of beets there, which I've pop in wherever there's space really. Fava or broad beans over here. One of the things I really love about these is just the smell of the flowers. They've got a really sweet smell actually, and there's been some field beans growing locally here as a crop like a cover crop to return nutrients back into the soil, and you go for a walk and it's sublime, the smell. Anyway, these I've got their little pods beginning to grow here. A few black fly as you usually get, but I've seen ladybirds or ladybugs waiting in the wings to take care of these, so I needn't worry about that. Now, let's take you back here because we're going to look at some warm season crops. That's crops that aren't sort of, that'll die in the frost. I've got my zucchini or courgettes here. Again, this is one of those crops that you plant, it sulks for a bit because it's come out into the cold after being cosseted indoors or in a greenhouse or whatever. And these, I'm not bluffing you, they literally doubled in the space of 1 week. And if I look in the middle, I'm seeing some flower buds there. So I think we're getting close to getting some fruits. And those first courgettes of the season are just magic. Back here, you may have seen these in a recent video. These are French beans. And you'll notice there are two, the beans at the front here are doing really quite well. They've got a good grip on the poles and they're growing away nicely. But there are a few that are looking a bit weather beaten and haven't grown much. And I think that the difference here is that the ones that have grown on a bit, I actually kept in the greenhouse for about another 10 days. French beans really like it warm. They like that cosseted sunny environment. And I think they appreciated the warmth when we had a cold snap back earlier. So although there weren't any frosts, I think they just like the extra warmth and they've responded to that. So I guess it shows sometimes delaying planting and sowing actually pays dividends later on. It's not always just front end the planting as soon as possible. I've got French marigolds here for a splash of colour and also to attract away some of the pests, to things like whitefly. And you may notice here I've got parsley. Parsley likes kind of dappled shade. It doesn't like it very hot and sunny anyway. And I thought it's a great way to cast a little bit of shade. As the beans grow, they'll help keep it a bit cooler here for the parsley, and that'll help them last for longer. All of this parsley, and there's some more down in the other bit of the garden, I'll show you in it shortly. All of this parsley was grown from one pot of parsley taken from the grocery store, and I split them all up. There are about, I don't know, 25 little seedlings in there. Split them all up, potted them all on, and I've got a whole load of parsley from that. So that's a really good tip. Just get those grocery store pots, break them up as much as you can, pot them on, and you'll double, triple, or 20 times your purchase. Let's have a look at the back here. We have got some beautiful garlic, and that's quite close to harvesting. I reckon it's about 3 or 4 weeks away. I'm really excited about that because garlic is absolutely one of my favourite vegetables. I put it in just about everything: soups, stews, stir fries, salad dressings. A bit too much, some might say, but I can't get enough of the stuff. There's some more multi-sown beets or beetroot here, and then we were prepping and getting everything ready this morning, and I noticed these here. You can only just see them, but it's tiny asparagus spears. I planted some asparagus crowns here probably about 3 months ago now. Nothing happened, and I assumed they'd sort of perished in the infernal cold we had throughout May, and it was quite wet as well, and just wrote them off. They've taken, and I think we're going to get a good crop in a few years' time once they bulk out, so I'm very pleased about that. A few more multi-sown salad onions as well. And then let's move over here. Now, I've mentioned this incredibly cold May that we had. I reckon we had about a month where it rained almost every day. The temperature didn't really get above the kind of low 50s Fahrenheit or 10 to 12 Celsius. We actually did a video on this corn, and I planted it all out for the video, and then I actually relented and dug it all up again, took it back inside, came back, planted it again, thought it must be warmer by now. It didn't get any warmer. I dug it up again and replanted it. So despite that back and forth, and they don't really like root disturbance, they've done all right. There's a saying in the States called knee high by the 4th of July. I really like that because it means don't panic about the fact it's sort of, quite short still. Once it gets going, it's going to be boof, kind of like the climbing beans. So it's raised bed here. So we're getting there. We've got about, 5-6 inches, 10-15 centimetres to go. We've got 2.5 weeks until the 4th of July, so these are going to be just fine. They're taller crops, so they're at the back. The sun tracks this way, gets the evening sun, so they're not going to shade anything, so that's fab. Over here, I've got some more chard. I'm a big fan of my green smoothies. Don't knock it till you've tried it. Lots of fresh fruit and then loads of greens piled in. It's got a very mild taste and it makes a delicious smoothie. This arch you've probably seen in a lot of the videos. It's got our climbing beans up there. We've got runner beans growing up it and also a couple of cucumbers. It's going to grow very quickly. Some are already starting to wind their way up. And in about a month and a half's time, I expect they'll have reached the top. It's going to look fantastic. And I'll do another video towards the end of summer and you'll see, hopefully you'll see these beans dangling down like a sort of shower of green goodness. Can't wait for that. Chard here, likes it here. It's a bit dappled, cooler in the morning. Peas, I'm not sure they're going to get past this stage, this kind of Monge 2 stage, because I can't resist picking them off and eating them, shells and all. Oh, it's just magic. Follow on through here. We got some parsnips. Now, something I was mentioned earlier about transplanting some carrot seedlings is a big no-no. Last year, I very successfully dug up and transplanted some parsnip seedlings to gap up where they weren't so successful elsewhere. And do you know what? They did just fine. These have come up nicely. I sowed some more down there which are in the sun and I think have got a bit baked and have been a bit sporadic. So I'm going to do exactly the same. Dig some up with as much of the soil as possible and transplant them over there. And I think they'll do just fine. And there's a wee row of radishes in between which I'll harvest probably within a week or two. We've got some more shady area here. These garlic were put in speculatively, so obviously they like full sun, but we'll just see what happens there. I've got some celery there, which will get away and really enjoy these slightly cooler conditions. And then in the middle of summer, they'll be shaded eventually by the tomatoes behind me, because the sun tracks around this way. This gets the full blast of the late afternoon sun, so this will be nicely shaded for the celery. I planted these tomatoes out early to mid-May when it was quite cold, and they actually turned purple, the leaves that is. I think what happens is it's so cold, the roots can't physically take up the nutrients and they're essentially nutrient deficient. As soon as it warmed up, however, the leaves started greening up and they're looking fresher, they're looking full of life and vigour, and some of them are already flowering. So I'm really confident they'll be away and doing some great stuff very soon. And I've got more French marigolds here to protect against things like whitefly. And then moving round to this final bed here, I've got some more chard, because you can never have enough chard. That's my opinion anyway. And then I've got these lovely winter squashes. This is Marina di Chioggia, is going to sprawl out all over the grass here, so it's going to not invade the bed here. And it's the same with the zucchini or courgettes over there. I've put them at the edge of the bed so they grow out and flop out onto the path and make the most efficient use of space. And you can't really see them because they're still very small, but I've got some butternut squashes dotted right at the back so that they will grow and seek forward and run into the paths, and you'll see a lush forest of foliage in a few months' time, and hopefully some delicious fruits to pick. That's it round here. So if you'll follow me, we'll weave our way through, down through the wildlife part of the garden and towards the next bit of the garden down below. Follow me. So we're entering a part of the garden now that isn't often shown in the videos, and this is the wildlife area of the garden. There's a small pond there, which is great for damselflies and dragonflies. And then there's this long grass here. I just let it grow, but I've mown a path through it so it looks kind of tidy and cared for. And there's loads of beautiful blooms here. This sort of Queen Anne's lace here, knapweed, which is just about to come into flower. There's ranunculus or buttercups there, and there are lots of other things as well. And all of this on a summer's day is alive with bees, butterflies. They help with pollination. And the long grass, because it's cool and shaded, is a haven for frogs and toads, and they are in here. And those guys help with slugs and snail control. And guess what? Having this wildlife area right near the vegetable garden over there that we've just been to, and down close to the vegetable garden over there that we're going to, well, that's going to help with pest control. I think gardening is very much a two-way street. The wildlife definitely helps us out. It gives us the conditions to grow, and we need to give something back. So no matter what size your garden, if you can leave a little area to grow a little wilder, that's going to pay you dividends. And here we are. This is another area of vegetables, as you can see. But there's a bit of fruit here, and my pride and joy, this was only planted last year. It's this glorious, beautiful, bold rhubarb. It's just great. I've resisted the temptation to pick any stems this year because I want it to sort of bulk out. And I think it's going to pay off because it's looking so healthy. These are black currants. There's two at the front there, either side of the rhubarb as well. These were actually taken from cuttings. If you look closely, there's quite a lot of whitefly and other bugs on them. I'm not too worried about that because they're not going to fruit this year. They need to concentrate on growing, and I have seen loads of ladybugs or ladybirds out in the garden, so I'm pretty sure they'll take care of those quite soon. There are some leftover tomatoes. I cleared some space for them there. They're looking a bit lanky. They were spares, so I'm just seeing what will happen, but they'll grow away, I'm sure. There's some more fava or broad beans here. These ones are a little behind the ones up there, but I think there are more flowers, so I'm hoping for more pods. It's a bit cooler and a bit damper in this part of the garden, and I think they really like that because they prefer those slightly cooler, wetter conditions. Oh, and again, it's a really sweet smell. Loads more leaves, lettuces, more chard, and then over here are the potatoes. Now you might remember these from a video we did earlier in the year. These are being grown in straw. I just nestled the tuber on top of the ground, piled on the straw and left it. They took absolutely ages to sprout, 6-8 weeks because it's been so cool and damp. And I thought, have they rotted away? No, they've all come up fine. And there's two types here, one first early and one second early to stagger the harvest. Looking at them, they're looking healthy, they're doing well, they've covered over the canopy now, so I'm hoping for really great things. And I guess there'll be about another month or so before I harvest them. Can't wait. Let's have a look at the greenhouse. So outside the greenhouse, I've got a lot of succession or follow-on crops. And what that means is just crops that are going to follow on once the ones that are out in the beds now have finished. So over here, I've got some celery. I've already got some celery in there, but I love the stuff and it grows really well over the winter here as well. So I'm going to plant some more once maybe some of the salads are done. I've got some chard, more chard. Some of the chard over there has started to bolt, i.e. it's started to flower, and that's not great. I find slightly later sowings are less prone to this, so those are ready to go in if necessary. And down here I've got the true follow-on or succession crops. These guys are the really hardy heroes that are going to be growing throughout the winter months when it's cold and dull. I've got two types of leeks. You don't usually grow them in plug trays like this, but the beds are still quite full and I had to pot them on into something. So they're probably going to go out once the potatoes are done, hopefully in a month. Then I've got two types of brassicas. I've got kale, a real winter staple, and some sprouting, this is purple sprouting, broccoli. I've always shied away from brassicas because we get such bad damage from caterpillars and whitefly and other bugs and so on. But this year I thought, you know, come on, let's give it a go, let's try. I've grown kale very successfully. I'm going to do the purple sprouting broccoli and put it in a special sort of cage. So I'm going to put some upright bamboo canes and then some horizontal ones probably tied on, and then drape some butterfly netting over it all to keep the butterflies off and give these guys a fighting chance. And then once the frosts start, I can take it off and let them grow on because there won't be so many butterflies about then. Right, let's go in the greenhouse and see what there is. So the greenhouse was absolutely packed to the rafters a couple of months ago, but now everything's out in the garden or outside there because it's a bit hot in here. We've just got the warm season stuff left. So this has been a video. These are the straw bales we prepared about a month and a half ago, and they've now been planted up with tomatoes. Two types, a vining or indeterminate type of tomato. I think that's Moneymaker. And then we've got a bush type. This is Roma, a lovely plum tomato. So they're all starting to flower. You notice here the leaves are starting to droop a bit here. That's just a reaction to the heat. They kind of uncurl in the evening, and they're curling a lot less than they did a week ago. They're getting used to the temperatures now. Over here, I got some last minute bargains really. These came by post in a little cardboard tray. They're different types of peppers, including chili peppers, and aubergine or eggplant. These aubergine or eggplant are being grafted, which means they're on a different root system, and they put the variety and stuck it on top and literally held it together with this little clip, and that'll fall off. And what that does, it makes the plant even more resilient and even more vigorously growing. And in our cold and inclement summers, that can sometimes be handy, although at the moment it's anything but that. And then I've got a few more tomatoes and some fennel, which is another follow-on crop to go out once there's space. But I'm so excited because there's about 8 different types of chili and pepper here, and I can't wait to get my hands on them. And here we are in the main ornamental border. This is quite young actually. They were started off from plug plants autumn before last and then planted out last spring. It's quite small plants that I grew on a little bit, and they're finally beginning to bulk out. And there's a lot going on here. The highlights at the moment are these beautiful red geums. We've got these lovely nepetas, which the bees absolutely love. And then there are these pops of height and colour from the aquilegias, also known as granny's bonnet, which is rather quaint, isn't it? Now, this is very much a work in progress. There are some things that are probably a bit too far back, and things need some jumbling around and moving about, and we'll see what works. But that's half the fun of gardening. That's what it's about. It's about experimenting and trying things. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter. You jiggle things about, you learn, and you enjoy the whole process. Now, I've got a lot of exciting plans over the coming months for this whole garden, and we're going to be filming a lot of it. So the best way to stay up to date with everything we do is, of course, to subscribe. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about successional follow-on crops, then do check out this video as well. And I will catch you next time.